Hey everybody! So today we're going to talk some more about the Galactic Center. Today we're going to focus, we're going to deviate from looking at the research from the participants, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Galactic Center in terms of like religious beliefs, religious truth. Beyond that though, right, because Sagittarius is about beliefs and truth, okay? That's part of its energy. So I feel like we can't talk about the Galactic Center, or I can't research about the Galactic Center without also looking at people that have, say, some different or even controversial or even dangerous, in some cases, beliefs and truth. And you know, this is what comes to my mind first is like religious, metaphysical, even spiritual beliefs. But I also wouldn't rule out things like political beliefs, philosophical beliefs, really any kind of beliefs, right? So so I did a blog post. I'm going to break this video up into two videos. This is part one. The next one will be part two. And I wanted to look at people that are known for their beliefs, their truth, whatever that is. Like I said, in some cases it's dangerous or could be dangerous, or was and is dangerous. Now, the parameters for what I'm looking at here, because I did have some ideas in my mind when I started looking at these people. I wanted to find people, I'll read you what I wrote in the blog post. The person's beliefs had to have an influence on over 1,000 people in some form or fashion. That doesn't necessarily mean that they had 1,000 members of their belief system, but their belief system needed to influence at least that many people. So people like Charles Manson or David Koresh, or I wasn't looking at them because their influence was much smaller in scale compared to what I was looking at. Doesn't mean that they didn't do their damage, but smaller in scale than the impact these people's beliefs have had. Their beliefs infiltrated other areas of life outside of just them and their adherents. This was another one of the parameters that I was kind of looking at. Let's see, also these beliefs didn't have to only be spiritual, religious in nature, but any kind of belief was up for grabs. Religious, spiritual, philosophical, political, etc., like I just said. So yeah, those were kind of the parameters that I was looking at here. And there are more people that probably fit these parameters. If you can think of any, let me know. And I'll take a look at them. I'm still looking into this myself. But before I continue on, let me say really quickly that I am not a Galactic Center expert. Want to do my disclaimer? I am not. I am literally just fucking with astrology and fucking with ideas. So nobody hold me to any of this. Like, oh, you said this, blah, blah, blah. Nope. This is literally just fucking around, tossing shit out there, seeing what actually fits and sticks and stays. I reserve the right to find any or all of this wrong later on, which sometimes happens with research. But I do feel like I am on a track. We'll say it like that. I feel like I'm on a track. Don't know if it's necessarily the sole right one, but I do feel like I am on a track. Let me also say that I've never said the Galactic Center is a good or a bad thing. I feel like it is, the GC warps things and it amplifies things. Meaning people with GC contacts, I think that we have there's some people that feel like if you've got certain aspects in your natal chart, they will play out this way regardless, and you have no say in how this plays out. I'm not fatalistic like that. I don't think that that's how it works. We have certain aspects in our chart, right? We have certain things going on in our charts. Some things are easy, some things are challenging. I think that we, whether we realize that we're doing this or not, we kind of choose how we want these aspects to play out with the choices that we make, how we react to situations, things like that. We choose how these things play out for us. Do we go on the good side or do we go on the bad side? And good and bad are relative terms, but you know what I mean. You get what I'm saying. I think the GC is the same sort of thing, right? It is an amplifier, though. I will say that. I do think it amplifies. So if you decided to say go on the good side of things, it probably really amplifies that. Sorry, something just popped up. If you go on the bad side of things, it really amplifies that. Okay? So I will say that, right? I'm going to put that out there first before we continue on. Okay. So the first person that I looked at was Joseph Smith. He is the one who started the Mormon Church. This is what his chart looks like. As you can see, he has Jupiter conjunct the Galactic Center. The Sun would also be considered conjunct the Galactic Center. The North Node's too far out of orb. I wouldn't really consider it here, especially since the Galactic Center was at 24 degrees when he was born. He was born in 1805. He doesn't have any oppositions. And he also doesn't have any trines. Now, the lack of the trine is really interesting here because, and I'll say this, I actually feel like this fucker was probably actually, he was contacted by something. I don't know if it was that angel. I think the name Angel Moroni. I might be saying that wrong, pronouncing that wrong. He claimed that this angel dictated or gave him visions and then told him to write the visions out to create the Book of Mormon. I actually am inclined to believe that he did make contact with something. Why am I inclined to think that? I'm going to jump into something for just a second, and then I haven't really gotten into this. Somebody brought up the Galactic Center, and it is something that I did know about, but I really hadn't gone into in that much depth, and I've started to look into it just a little bit more. Anyway, when he started transcribing this from the angel, the Book of Mormon, the sun at the time, this was on September 22nd of 1827, the transiting sun would have been conjunct where the supergalactic center is, or was at that time, within 2 degrees. Now, normally, obviously, the transit sun is going to be where it is once a year. But I do think it's interesting that, and they remembered the exact date, like the exact date was taken down, which I think is interesting too. Like they remembered that fucking date, 9/22 of 1827. I think that's interesting that this was actually remembered. Which does make me think, since the Supergalactic Center was also involved in this, it does make me think that he was in touch with somebody. Now, I don't think he knew how to translate it because he doesn't have the trine. He doesn't have a trine. Now, I know his brother was with him a lot. I'm just throwing this out there. I can't remember what his brother's name was. He and his brother actually died together. I almost wonder if somebody else was supposed to translate this. And mind you, when I say that, I realize what's supposed to happen actually does happen. Maybe they wanted a shitty translator for some reason, because I do kind of feel like he was a shitty translator for this. Connected because of the conjunctions, right? Connected to the GC and perhaps things that are otherworldly, yes, but a shitty translator because he has no trines. I'll go on a limb and say that. I really do. So while I do think that he was probably given information, I think the way that things got lost in translation is what I'm saying. I really do think that. Maybe they were supposed to. Like I said, maybe they wanted a shitty translator. Maybe they didn't want somebody to transcribe it correctly. Now, his views, and this is one person on this list that I don't think he was bad. Sorry, it's a bug. I don't think he was bad. But again, I don't think he translated things correctly. He may have had contact, but he wasn't a good translator for this. His views, though, have created some problems. Some believers, not all people that are Mormons, but there are some very problematic followers of the Mormon Church that have emerged from what he created. So I don't think that he was bad, but I don't think he was a good translator for this in how it was actually supposed to be translated. But again, maybe that was the point. Now, he does not have Jupiter retrograde. He does have the conjunctions, but he doesn't have Jupiter retrograde. So he's lacking the protection that I've talked about before. And he and his brother were killed in Carthage, Illinois. A pissed off mob got a hold of him and killed him. So there's him. He's the first one I wanted to mention. Now, in talking about him, the next person that I want to bring up, let me pull him up on my thing. Hold on. The next person I'm going to talk about is Warren Jeffs. That piece of shit. Who is, I think he still is the leader of the FLDS church. There's regular Mormons, and then there's the fundamentalist Mormons. Fundamentalist Mormons are the ones that still do the polygamy bullshit, the child bride bullshit, all that bullshit. and to be quite honest, I don't really care if you want to have multiple wives or multiple husbands. I don't really give a shit. If everything is, consensual, what the fuck do I care? It's the child bride shit and the child abuse shit that's really, in my opinion, the biggest problem. And it does seem like because these communities are so secretive, because they have to be, by nature of how they operate, that they're technically breaking laws by practicing polygamy. I feel like when things are done in secret, things like sex abuse, child abuse, all that kind of shit, it's kind of a breeding ground for it. If they were allowed to be polygamous out in the open, perhaps you wouldn't see a lot of that shit happen. Perhaps they wouldn't be compounded off and have to, they wouldn't be so walled off from the rest of the world, and that shit wouldn't happen as much. Maybe not. Maybe that wouldn't be the case. Either way. Anyway, so Warren Jeffs, he has, let me see, what is that? He has his North Node and Venus conjunct the Galactic Center. He has the South Node conjunct the Anti-Center. No Jupiter retrograde. And Jupiter and Pluto are trine the Galactic Center. So he has the trine here to translate things down to Earth. He does not have Jupiter retrograde, which does not, I think, lend him the protection necessary to do his bullshit, which is good, because this motherfucker deserves to be in prison. Like, he deserves it. That's where he should be. Now, his, he does have, let me see something real quick. He does have, I don't have the declination charts pulled. He does have, I think it's Venus out of bounds, which is conjunct the Galactic Center. Oh, and in Joseph Smith's chart, Mars was out of bounds. Just wanted to throw that out there. I forgot to mention that. So he does have the Galactic Center contacts, which probably does funnel a whole bunch of energy to that to Venus and to the North Node. So he has them. But again, no Jupiter retrograde, so he is lacking that protection to do his shit, which again is a good thing. Okay, now we'll talk about somebody on a completely opposite end of the spectrum as far as beliefs go. Okay, I might pronounce this wrong. We're going to talk about Kim Taesung. Here is his chart. He is the eternal leader of North Korea. He's Kim Jong-un's grandfather, or was his grandfather. Okay, so this guy has... Okay, so when he was born, the Galactic Center was at 25 something, and his Jupiter is at 15. So his Jupiter retrograde is at 15. So I would consider that a conjunction. It's on the wider end of things, but I would consider it. Let's see here. Oh, and he's got Pluto conjunct the anticenter, which makes his Pluto polarity point conjunct the GC. That to me is really interesting, something I have to think about a little bit more, but I remember seeing that, and I actually saw that in somebody else's chart too that I was looking at and thinking, wow, that's really, I wonder how the hell that how that is. And for those of you that don't know, the Pluto can kind of function in a similar way to the South Node, and the Pluto polarity point can function in a similar way to the North Node. So, yeah, you're kind of looking at something like that. And he's got a whole bunch of stuff trine. He has the North Node trine, the Sun trine, Mercury retrograde trine. And we don't have a good time of birth for him, so I don't pay attention to the houses. So, and why did I chose to do him because North Korea, you know, they have their own ideology. It's called, I might pronounce this wrong too. It's called Juche. It's essentially a form of it's a form of communism. A form of it. It's similar, but it is different too. In my blog post, I'll have a link to exactly what it is if y'all are curious. But it was such a big deal to this dude. He believed in it so much that he seemed like he was definitely somebody that I should look at here. Now, he has all the stuff that I've talked about. He was also very protected to do all of this, in my opinion. Especially with the Jupiter retrograde in conjunct the GC. And he didn't die. He wasn't killed. He died at 82 of a heart attack. It seemed like a totally normal thing. Didn't seem like anything weird or, you know, did he really die that way? It seemed like it was just he died of a heart attack because he was old or something like that. So I'm not sure if anybody ever tried to take him out. I didn't do that much looking into his particular history, but he wasn't going to go anywhere until I don't think he was going to go he wasn't in any danger of being taken out or anything like that. And who knows, maybe if, I'll say this, maybe if he hadn't had Jupiter retrograde, perhaps something would have happened and North Korea wouldn't be like they are today. Perhaps there's something about that country. I don't want to say that country's protected per se, but I don't know, the eternal leader having that kind of makes me think that they're not going to go anywhere until they're ready to go somewhere, until they're ready to change. Like, nobody's going to change them. They'll change when they're ready to, kind of thing. That's kind of where my mind goes with that. Much to probably the annoyance of the rest of the world. But anyway, so I'm gonna do the other three here in another video. I'll post it the next day. But okay, so if you all want to follow us on Instagram, find us at Let's Fuck With Astrology. I am at Saturn Season Astrology on Instagram. Natalie is at Apaterno Astrology on Instagram. If you want to like and subscribe and whatever else people do on YouTube, search for us at Let's Fuck with Astrology YouTube channel. And if you do the Reddit thing, come join us on the subreddit Let's Fuck with Astrology. All right, y'all. I'll see y'all later.